Hello, my name is Scott Davis. Welcome to New World Birth. This is the weekly neutrino forecast for February 21st to February 27th of 2016. And on February 21st, we have the sun. You can see it denoted here by this black circle with a dot on it. It's in Pisces. It's also in the 55th hexagram. And on the outside of the wheel, we have the chalk mark for the 55, numbered from bottom to top. The 55 goes yang, yin, yang. Yang, yin, yin. And then the 55th hexagram is mapped to an opening in an energy channel called a gate. And right here, this is the 55th gate of spirit, abundance. Abundance is strictly a question of spirit, located in the solar plex center in an individual energy path in the knowing circuit called the channel of emoting, a design of moodiness that connects with the 39th gate of the provocateur, obstruction, the value of obstruction and provoking analysis, assessment, and reevaluation. And I found human design to be amazingly accurate in describing the person that I use it as my primary tool when I provide readings. And we have the following activated gates on February 21st. We have the sun in the 55, with the earth in the 59. The north node of the moon is in the 47, with the south node in the 22. Mercury is in the 19th gate, with Venus in the 41st gate, and Mars in the 43rd gate. Jupiter is retrograde in the 47th gate, along with the north node. Saturn is in the 5th gate, with Uranus in the 51st gate, Neptune in the 37th gate, and Pluto in the 54th gate. So obviously not every gate activation forms a channel, but this information can be very helpful if you know your own human design chart, because some of these transits will form channels with potentials in your personal body graph. And as we begin the week, we have no channel definition due to the transit field. The 21st begins in the second line of the 55, which is distrust, abundance hampered by slander or gossip. Exalted, the gift of being able to penetrate to the center that may demonstrate effectively through its relating talents that its truthfulness is genuine. Emotional stability and strength of spirit is dependent on being trusted by others. Detrimented, the direct challenge to the slanderers who always have the advantage of quoting the bard, methinks thou dost protest too much. Only continued example can overcome distrust. The emotional drive to insist on trustworthiness that does not guarantee its acceptance by others or benefits the spirit. Later on the 21st, the sun then moves into the third line, so moves from the hermit line to the martyr line of the 55 at 12:10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so just 10 minutes after midnight Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 55-3 is innocence. Here I am only following orders is a genuine defense. Exalted, when the form is correct and attempts at actualization have been disciplined and within guidelines, failure cannot be personally attributed. The emotional possibility to recognize that despite one's best effort, failure is possible and does not need to affect the spirit. Detrimented, where struggle against conformity and individual initiative can bring a superior to ruin while safely hiding behind a shield. The energy to selflessly protect one's spirit at the expense of others. And then later on the 21st, the sun then moves into the fourth line of the 55 at 10:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so an hour and a half before midnight on the 21st. The sun in the 55-4 is described as assimilation, the establishment of a framework that balances principles with energy and leads inevitably to expansion and prosperity. The possible spirit that comes when emotional awareness and energy are balanced and principled. Detrimented, boundless energy that knows no restraint, boundless energy that ignores awareness at the risk viscous spirit. And then also on the 21st, Mars moves from the 43rd hexagram and gate, and it moves to the 14th. So this is Mars is in the gate of power skills, possession in great measure, the accumulation or retention of power through skilled interaction, coupling grace with control. Mars in the first line of the 14 is money isn't everything, the recognition that wealth has its own problems, exalted the lust for liquor, tempered by higher principles. The key to manifesting power is higher principles, detriment the delusion that you can throw money at problems. Energy alone can never be the key. And Ross spoke of Mars being an extraordinary and immature energy resource that lacks refinement and is subject to outbursts. On the 22nd, the Sun then moves into the fifth line of the 55, into the heretical fifth line at 8:51 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Sun in the 55.5 is detrimented and described as growth. Detrimented and integrative openness that in its broad acceptance of advice may be eventually eclipsed. An emotional openness where spirit is at risk from conditioning. On the 23rd, the Sun then moves into the sixth line, role model line of the 55 at 7:13 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The Sun in the 55.6 is selfishness, exalted acquisition, obsession that through alienation is indirectly beneficial materially to others. The possibility of finding spirit through materialism. Detrimented where the material abundance exists, but no one gets to share the light. The possibility that materialism becomes obsessive with a mean spirit that will not share. And then also on the 23rd, Venus moves from the 41, joining Mercury in the 19. In human design, Venus is about values, morality, natural law, in which we deal with the other and the consequences of the world around us. And Venus in the 19th gate of wanting approach, that all things are interrelated, is apparent and manifested through the action of approach. And in the first line of the 19, this is interdependence, exalted, the successful approach that does not lose its individual character in acceptance and the pressure of wanting without losing one's identity when accepted by others. Detriment, a tendency once an approach is accepted to get stuck in continued reflection at the expense of continued development. The pressure for acceptance, which fears eventual rejection. And then later on the 23rd, Mercury leaves the 19, leaving Venus behind, and it moves into the 13th gate up here in the G center. So we've got Mercury, of course, in mythology was the messenger of the gods. So this is communication, and Ra talked about it being expansion of human consciousness through communication, not just as words, but also as music. And this is Mercury in the gate of the listener, fellowship of man, universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspire humanistic cooperation. In the first line of the 13 is empathy, the ability to relate and commune with equanimity, exalted harmony through affection, a role of openness and listening to others with affection. Detrimented, the politician kissing babies, an openness that's never really free of motives. And then we get to the 24th. And at this point, the Sun moves. It leaves the 55, joining Neptune in the 37, and the Earth moves from the 59, and it moves into the 40. Which then brings us this definition. of the solar plexus and heart center. So we have the earth is in the 40th gate of aloneness, deliverance, the point of transition between struggle and liberation. And this shift happens at 5:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we've got the sun in the 37th gate of friendship, the family, the manifestation, macro and microcosmically of the organic nature of communities. And the sun in the first line of the 37 is the mother and the father, a position of inherent respect that ensures a focus for development of guidelines. Exalted harmony is the key to successful maintenance of relationships. It's only through harmony that the beauty and values of the family can endure. Friendship that is rooted in sensitivity and ensures harmony. Detrimented, no planet and detrimented. And the 4037, along with the 3420 and the 4323, this is one of the three polarities that actually form a channel, and with the Sun-Earth axis in the 3740, we've got the channel of community until March 2nd. This definition brings the energy where people wonder where they belong in the scheme of things and then try to live that out. It's a time of thinking about marriage and family as the foundation of community. Fairness becomes more important under the influence of the channel of community. Balance becomes important in all aspects of life. People will explore how they fit into their community and on a more mystical level, where they fit in the universe and what their true purpose is. This impacts people as they think about the need to be supportive of those beings around them, and they get pulled into things related to community. With the defined ego center, people without a defined heart center may feel as if they have something to prove or want to make improvements or make promises or commitments that may not be correct for them. And the defined solar plexus, for those who do not have emotional definition, this brings that unfamiliar wave of emotions and perhaps could lead to acting confrontational. On the 25th, we then have the sun moving into the second line of the 37 hexagram. This shift happens at 3:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37.2 is responsibility, exalted, the understanding of the principle of individual responsibility as a foundation for successful cooperation, the possibility of friendship through individual responsibility. Detriment, a tendency to point out the responsibility of others, the possibility that friendship will lead to pointing out the responsibility of others. On the 26th, the sun moves into the third line of the 37th hexagram at 2:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37.3 is even-handedness. The success of any group is dependent on maintaining order. Exalted, the ability to judge what behavior is appropriate and react in a balanced manner to transgressions. The possibility to have the sensitivity to know what behavior is appropriate in a relationship. Detrimented, the ironic tendency to either test incessantly the borders of acceptability or to respond to the same tendency in others with severity. The possible lack of sensitivity to what behavior is appropriate. And on the 27th, the sun then moves into the fourth line of the 37, so up into the opportunist line of the 37th hexagram at 12:44 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The sun in the 37.4 is described as leadership by example. Any member of the family may take on a leadership role through exemplary behavior. Exalted, the manifestation of the highest principles in everyday practical affairs. The possibility possibility of the highest principles in all relationships, resulting in a leadership role. Detrimented a conservatism that generally only accepts the leadership of the father, who may or may not be a valued role model. The possibility of being insensitive to the leadership of anyone other than those accepted by tradition. And on the 27th, Mercury moves from the 13 to the 49, and Venus moves from the 19 to the 13. So we have Mercury over here in the 49th gate of, see if we can get of the revolution, of course. And we have Venus in the 13th gate. So, we talked about Mercury being about communication. The 49th gate, again, revolution. It's the gate of principles, ideally the transformation of forms based on the highest principles, not simply for power. People will probably be communicating about the redistribution of resources to support the tribe. Mercury in the first line is the law of necessity. The law of necessity, revolution, it has no support unless it's perceived as necessary. Exalted, the understanding and application of the law to maximize the expansion of support and thereby viability. The awareness that potential of principle is based upon being acceptable as valuable. Detrimented, the misuse of influence to insist that the necessity can be created out of actions. The helter-skelter syndrome, to commit acts of disorder as proof that disorder exists. Oversensitivity to rejection that can turn a principle into a crusade. And then also we've got Venus moving from the 19th to the 13th gate. In human design, we talked about Venus being about values. So we've got Venus in the 13th gate of the listener, the fellowship of man. Universal ideas and values in an ordered framework which inspires humanistic cooperation. Venus is exalted in the first line of the 13. Empathy, the ability to relate and commune with equanimity. Exalted harmony through affection. A role of openness in listening to others with affection. So as we wrap up the week, with the sun transiting from the gate of spirit into the gate of friendship, I thought I might discuss the upcoming global cycle a little more as the precession of the equinoxes moves from the first line of the 37 into the sixth line of the 55 in 2027. And the Earth, as I said before, it experiences a slow wobble on its axis, which over time moves the degree of the sun during the vernal equinox backwards through the zodiological signs and the corresponding hexagrams. So the spring equinox has been in the 37th hexagram, first line since the early 1960s, but in 2027 it backs into the sixth line of the 55th hexagram. That brings the mutation to the 55th gate and the solar plexus. Currently, the solar plexus is an awareness center along with the splenic and ajna centers, and a motor along with the root, sacral, and ego centers. But after this mutation, the solar plexus in children born in 2027 and afterwards will only be an awareness center. The motor that generates the emotional wave is going to remain for those born before the mutation, but for those born with the mutation, they will only have an awareness center in the solar plexus. This new form of human being is called the rave. This will mean that folks born with this mutation, the 2212 and the 3635 will be projector channels, and we'll see an increase in quad right variable as humans continue their shift from strategic left brain mind thinkers to receptive right brain mind thinkers. And this shift is already evident in the increase in the diagnoses of autism spectrum disorders. Overall, this will be a major shift for humanity as we are currently experiencing the wrap-up of the global cycle in the 37th hexagram, and we can see that in the decay of community, particularly in the support safety net programs, which are being slowly dismantled as we move towards a new era of the individual. With Neptune's veil transiting from the 55 to the 37, I believe most people were blinded when Neptune was into the 55 about how extraordinary this change will be. This seems to becoming much more clear now that Neptune's moved into the 37th hexagram and no longer bringing its veil to the gate where the mutation will occur. And when we look at the cross of planning, which is associated with the 37 and the 40, the 9, and the 16, and we've spoken about the 3740 and its support for the community. So, but what about the 16 and the 9? The 16th is the gate of skills, and the 9 has the potential to be able to work with the energy for detail and focus. The 4730 is the background frequency, and with the Sun Earth there at the end of this week, this is where everything is dedicated to the community. The 16 in the cross of planning brings us the skills for science and education that are shared to support the community, which has brought us the complex global community that we currently live in. As the breakdown of the cross of planning continues, as we're moving towards the cross of the sleeping phoenix and the empowerment of the individuals, not as leaders, but really as guides through acting as themselves. As Ross said, the future is about the individual. It isn't about collective dependency. It isn't about being able to trust that someone is going to be able to act on your benefit. So we can see that the infrastructure is decaying here in the U.S., and I expect elsewhere. Our government is underfunding education, so it will collapse and be ripe for privatization, as has happened with the prison system. Citizens United has made individual fortunes more politically important than votes. Social Security and water rights we're seeing move towards privatization. The transportation systems and their infrastructure are decaying and collapsing. Human design is about using our strategy and authority to inspire our unique integrity regardless of what's going on in the macrocosm. So act as yourself and observe the global movie in this time of transition. I want to thank you for checking out New World Birth, and the next segment of the weekly neutrino forecast will be coming up on February 28th, and should be available on the 27th, when we will continue to look at the influence of the heavenly bodies as they transit the sky and the hexagrams of the I Ching. And you can check us out on Facebook, Blogger, or YouTube. And I encourage you to share this information as videos or as text as widely as you choose. And invite you to contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com if you've got any questions or wish to schedule a reading. And if you've been thinking about getting a reading, please contact me. I would love to provide you a reading during these uncertain times. You'll need to be able to either call me in Maine, in the USA, or we can connect with Skype to receive your reading. We're also accepting donations, and contact me at newworldbirth@yahoo.com. I'll let you know how you can make a donation or get a reading. As I've said before, it's a great way to support what we're doing here, as well as get something something of great value to yourself. As always, I'm blessed that you've taken the time to connect with my passion for these ancient mysteries and their application to our journey during this incarnation. The light in me honors the light in you. Namaste and Lakesh, and as Ra would say, love yourself. All my best. Look forward to connecting with you in the future.